White Americans are not asking for a Choctaw vampire spinoff or prequel. Choctaw Indians or any Native American tribe are not beating down Ryan Coogler's door to get a Choctaw vampire spinoff or prequel. Only Negroes, Black Americans, African Americans, Indigenous Black Americans,
just some fair-skinned niggers,
foundational Black Americans, ADOs, or whatever nonsense y'all calling yourselves these days.
just some fair-skinned niggers.
Y'all the only ones that asking for a spinoff to the Choctaw Nation.
Slow down.
You know what that prequel will look like? If you didn't know, because obviously if you did read, you wouldn't want a prequel or a spinoff to Choctaw Vampire Hunters, because it would have to be rooted in this history. If you didn't know, they owned Negro slaves. If you didn't know, they fought with the Confederate Army. The 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, were labeled civilized by white Americans in the 18th and 19th centuries because they adopted key aspects of Anglo-American culture, including the institution of chattel slavery. This adoption was often encouraged by the U.S. government as a means of assimilation intended to align tribal, economic, and social structures with those of the U.S. South. All of this was theirs. So you can see that the United States government was a lot more smarter than these Native Americans. Instead of banding together along with us and fighting against slavery or chattel slavery, they wanted to align their pockets and keep us in perpetual bondage. This is a story about Hana Saki. When the federal government forced the Choctaws to sell their nation's land around 1896, people could be allocated some of this land by proving they had some degree of Choctaw blood and lived with the Choctaw Nation's original borders. For example, if you were proven by legal documents and interviews to be 1/8 Choctaw and 7/8 white, you get the normal allocation of between 240 and 320 acres, valued at approximately $1,100. I know you Negroes don't know anything about the Dawes rolls. It was basically white men sneaking into tribal nations, marrying their women, bribing the U.S. government $5 to put their names on the rolls as tribal kinsmen. They expose you to this in the movie Killers of the Flower Moon. However, if you were a freed slave or a descendant of a freedman, you get only 40 acres, the standard allocation valued at $130. Apparently, if you were half Choctaw and half Black, as was the case with Hanasaki, she too would get only 40 acres. She was the daughter of Choctaw Amanapatubi and a slave named Jane. This is how some of y'all have Choctaw blood. It wasn't because some righteous marriage or y'all just were automatically born as a Choctaw. No, your great-great-grandmother was a slave to this nation, and some of the Indian men, just like white men did in slavery, slept with your great-great-great-grandmother. That's how you have that bloodline. Jane and Hannah were slaves of Choctaw widow Ishtahoti, and adds insult to injury, Hannah's daughter, Lena McGilberry, who was 3/4 Choctaw, and her granddaughter, Elizabeth Ann McGilberry, who was 7/8 Choctaw, both got only 40 acres, since they were still considered Black by the Dawes commissioners. So they didn't even want to claim y'all. And not just the United States government didn't want to classify you as part of the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw Nation up to the 80s fought against any other freedmen or descendants of freedmen who were slaves to the Choctaw Nation, wanted them to not receive their just due of the land or whatever money that the United States government gave the Choctaw Nation. They fought so y'all couldn't get none of that money and none of that land. And yet y'all still walking around here claiming to be so heavily involved with the Choctaw Nation or any indigenous Americans before chattel slavery. So going back to the movie, the reason why Remick, when he was at the front door of that Klans couple, peeked in their house and saw that they had hoods and all the apparel to be Klans members, they wanted you to see that scene. So when the Choctaw Indians showed up right after him and he peeked in, you'd automatically assume that he also saw the same apparel of the Klansmen that this couple had. And they didn't have no problems with it. Why? Because they fought with the South. So they didn't care that these people didn't like Negroes. They didn't like Negroes neither. And yet y'all want to see a spinoff or a prequel to that. You might as well see the prequel to why these two white couples became Klansmen. You might as well see a prequel of why that white man that wanted to sell the twins that Pacific building where they used as a kill box. You might as well want to see a prequel to that because it would have ended up just like this.
Very dangerous. He might have come onto your property. Have you seen anyone recently?
No. Bert!
Is he in there with you, ma'am? He's not what he seems. God forbid you let him into your home. And if so, we need to act now.
Kilia! Tushpa! Ikaw kilo kayo sa ang tushpa tsuka kilona!
Jihoya, Chiapisa, Chitakla, ay Chigi.
Bert! Engines came and went. Bert! Bert! Bert?
Oh, he's just resting. He's all better now.
Hey, baby. Don't cry.